Hello and welcome to the Wise Yourself Up podcast. I am your host, Carla, and in today's episode, I am going to talk about my granny Adeline. And I'm laughing because she'd have a stroke with my hair. If you're watching me, I definitely have dead hair. This is my second time recording this episode. The first time, I think it was like a wooden spoon talking about what I'm going to share. But let's start from the start. I'll tell you my crack. So it's the 1st of November I'm recording this, and this will go out on the 6th of November. I did not complete sober October. I didn't get drunk though, and I didn't. I did go to a party on the 25th, but I didn't go to any parties. Didn't run ragged the whole month. So I definitely, for a majority of the month, so I definitely felt the benefits of that. And that, I think that if I could just not drink more than 3 drinks, my life would be much, much better. So I'll keep you posted on that crack. I went and watched the film Outrun, which was a really beautiful film around addiction with Saoirse Ronan in it. It was really beautifully done. And I didn't get that emotional at it, but a lot of people did get really emotional at it. What else I've been doing? I've been writing a new course. I've been wanting to do something deeper with people. So I've been in the throes of that, as well as the Gabor Mate course, which is bringing up a lot for me personally. It's like you attend the same wound many, many times. And I suppose I've been on this journey for 10 years now. And it's funny how it changes. You know, I think the first time I met some of my childhood wounds, I was like, I don't want to do this. I'm never going to connect to that inner child. Fuck this. Give me another strategy. And now there's definitely still some resistance, don't get me wrong, but it has changed and I've definitely softened, which is nice to notice. And it's been really interesting. Gabor Mate's different. Sorry, the name, I'm still practicing the name. The different ways that he looks at different things in psychology, which I'll share about with you another time. I'm flat out listening to Chapel Ronan. I keep on saying her name wrong because I'm like a West Belfast granda, and just loving that album. Also listened to a few other young female singers whose names, is it Olivia something? I'm really turning into a pensioner here, aren't I? I'm not helping myself. But yeah, I've been enjoying a lot of young female artists. What else have I been doing? I'm back on Hinge. I have a gag of a story to tell you, right? So my friend Gemma was like, I think she's gay, right? So I think that she can look at heterosexual dating different to what a heterosexual woman can, right? And obviously if you're in and out of a relationship, that impacts it too. So she redid my Hinge profile. So I was like, I work away, you sort it all out. I don't really care. Like, it's not working for me anyway. And it is not to take the app so seriously. I think maybe I was taking it seriously, you know, thinking that you're going to go on all these lovely dates and things like that. But anyway, so I just sort of let it run in the background, not really checking it because I don't really want to invest time in it. And I can't remember when I went on to check it. And maybe like 2 people had liked me and I was like, right, I'll just go on a date with whoever asked, you know, it's a bit of crack. But one of the guys so I ordered this jacket, this coat, it was £150 and I wasn't sure about it. But I actually ordered it to my old address in London and not my new address. I was like, oh, for God's sakes. And I messaged the company and the company said, oh, there's nothing we can do. And I was like, oh, no. Then when the delivery company was about to deliver the coat, it says that if I wasn't going to be in, I could choose a different address. I was like, happy days. I'll choose a different address. So I chose the Co-op. Delighted. And then a week later, the coat still hadn't arrived. And I was like, what's going on here? And I contacted the company, all this crack, and they just said it got lost in the delivery. And I was like, right, okay, give me a full refund. No harm done. But then on Hinge, and this guy messaged me saying, I think you used to live in our building. I have your jacket. There's a parcel in the lobby for you. Is that your jacket? And I was like, yeah, happy days. So I got a free coat. Delighted. I don't know if I meant to be honest and send it back to the big global. It was a big global chain, so I didn't feel bad about it. If it had been an independent, I would have. Maybe I shouldn't have admitted this in the podcast, but here, it's the truth. So I'm delighted. It's only like big, massive global companies who are making billions. I don't feel bad about that sort of stuff. I also went on a date last night, which was not good. Not good, not good. But I think dating's always good to learn about yourself, what you like, who you are. It's always a good piece of inner reflection too. It just was not the one at all on any level. And what else have I been noticing? Do you know what I've noticed? Do you know like London's speed is so fast, and it really gives me the ick when people eat their sandwiches while walking. It's like, just have a wee minute and eat your sandwich sitting down. I don't mind people eating bananas and all walking or cereal bars, but a sandwich, like surely you're going to give yourself indigestion. My stomach hurts looking at them. And then another thing that's been on my mind is those robots that Elon Musk has made. What's your thoughts on those? I mean, they're meant to be able to save marriages. This is what's going to help save marriages, is these robots, because they'll do the dishes and mind your kids. But like, it can be living your kid with a robot. And then it's Elon Musk who is coding its moral code, which is all very weird, because a robot doesn't have electricity the way we do. It doesn't have that supernatural part the way we do. So yeah, it's a wee bit frightening, isn't it? Have you seen those cars in San Francisco that can drive themselves? A friend was there recently and they shared a video of it, and I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. The future, it really is. Like, is it Back to the Future as the film? I can't remember now, but it really is all those futuristic things coming true. So today I recorded this episode on my granda's birthday, which was the 21st of October, which was the week leading up to my granny's third anniversary, which is on the 25th of October. Both of them died on each other's birthday month, which is sweet, isn't it? And I was not in a good way on my granda's birthday morning. So I woke up, I did my yoga practice, and I was just in balls of tears. I happened to have therapy that morning, just by chance, by the way. And as soon as I got on, she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No," and cried my eyes out. And you just can't predict what way you're going to be in these types of things. Like, sometimes you're fine and sometimes you're a crying mess, which I'm always grateful for, because I'm someone who would more struggle to cry. And she shared this beautiful practice that they do with kids in care to help them remember the people that were in their life that maybe can't be in their life for various reasons, where you light a wee candle and you say their name and you say something about them. So it is a nice practice that you can do for someone who's passed as well. And it's funny because it is so powerful when you're a witness, right? So I was doing this session with my therapist on Zoom, and I lit a candle and I said a few words about my granda, about how mischievous he is and the messer, and just how much I missed him. And if I had done that alone, I probably wouldn't have evoked a fraction of what it evoked when you do it with somebody. Yeah, and it just reminded me the power of being witness, because obviously, I do these sessions and hold space for people on Zoom. And then when you realize just how powerful it is, just another pair of eyeballs on you, another soul witnessing you, really helps you metabolize what's inside of you. So that was really gorgeous, very painful, very emotional, but I'm very grateful for that experience. And we kept the candles burning all day for my granda. And then I took that Friday off, my granny's anniversary. Yeah, I had a nice wee day. I went to the cinema, had a nice lunch, just made space to remember her, which I'm very grateful to have that privilege to be able to take the day off. And I think it's important, if you can take time off, to do that, because it's very hard to keep going, because grief and love causes you to stop. And we're programmed to not want to stop. So it can be very difficult, and it can bring up a lot for a lot of people. So just send you loads of love if you're fighting with that, wanting to stop but can't stop, and all those different layers that can be present in grief. don't know why I'm called to share this story. I think it's important, isn't it? Our stories. I feel called to share the story about how my granny passed because I know a few of you want to hear it. And I hope it helps. So it was 3 years ago. It was 2021, and my granny was in grand health. Don't get me wrong, she took sick. So I completed a course. I had registered for an advanced yoga teacher training course, a 300-hour in sex, death, and wealth in Bali, because I realised that I was going to have a mental breakdown if my granny and granda died, and that they were also 87. And, you know, I'm a very, I might not strike you as a practical person, but I can be very realist and practical about these things. And I realized I needed to do something about it. So I registered for this course, and the night before I went, there was two things that happened that I'm going to briefly share. I've shared it before. One was that my granny collapsed. I heard her a bang through my sleep at night. She collapsed, and from then she never left the house again. In terms, she stopped going shopping on her own. She rarely went out from then. She stopped going to her Wednesday night or Mother's night. Yeah, so life really changed, and we were very lucky that we have a big family and she had care all the time. There was always someone who stayed with her, and we had different people calling for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She just wasn't able to run the house the way she used to. And another thing that happened was I went to a white witch and I drew the death card 3 times. And then 2 years later, 3 people died belonging to me. In 18 months, my granny, my daddy, and my granda. Okay, so going back to 3 years ago, so that had been for 2 years that was a change in her health, but she was still sharp as a tack. You wouldn't get anything past Adeline, which is my granny's name. And, you know, you'd have the crack with her and everything was fine. She could wash and dress herself. She could eat. She could up and down the stairs, all that. And so I went away for my breath work camp. So was just about finishing a year-long training in breathwork. I completed this through lockdown, and a lot of the training was online. But to graduate, you had to go to England and live in this big old house with like maybe 20 people, I think it was. I can't really remember the numbers. And you had to breathe twice a day. And these breathes are the deeper breathes where it's people talk about the possibility of having a psychedelic experience. It's quite deep on the system. So it's quite intense to breathe twice a day for a week. Typically, I'd probably recommend doing it maybe once a week or once a month, depending on you. My preference would be probably to do it once a week. It's like a deep clean and you really attune to yourself. It's a deep connection and you get clarity around what's going on for you. And it's a real practice of being with yourself, right? You're lying in stillness or sitting in stillness, deeply breathing and noticing your thoughts and noticing sensations in your body. So I went to the breath camp and I can't really remember. My memory's hazy now because I think losing someone you love is always traumatic, even if it is in the best of circumstances in terms of, you know, someone who's very old who passes away in their sleep, you know. So I can't remember. I think when I arrived, I got the news that my granda had COVID. We were allowed to travel at this time, and then obviously we got locked up again that Christmas. So we were in and out of lockdowns at the time. So my granda, for the first time, had got COVID, and he had been vaccinated, and my granny had not. And my poor aunts and mummy, you know, they had the job of trying to keep them separate and trying for my granny not to catch COVID. So I remember not being worried about my granda. I was like, right, okay. And obviously I was, you know, worried about, you know, my granny and her separation from my granda. And I think my granny was just fed up. She called it, I'm fed up with this COVID. So funny. And she like stopped watching the news and all. It was really getting her down. And if you imagine my granny was born in 1932, through World War II, through the Troubles, through 7 children, 60 years of marriage, but nothing got to her from what I could see and what she told me, like COVID, because she was separated, nothing separated people like COVID did, and she just couldn't cope with it, couldn't cope that her children couldn't come in and out of the house, and she just didn't like it. So then I think it was around the Wednesday, I get a call saying that my granny had contracted COVID. And obviously on this podcast, we talk about how the body knows, and every cell of my being knew that it was the end. I just knew it. And there was a very strong awareness around my body knowing and my mind going, absolutely fucking not. No, this is not it. This is not the end. That knowing that the body was telling me, this is it, Carla. And then my ego, my mind going, no. So there was that inner conflict in me. Notice how my voice is changing. So what was next? So then I fucking, excuse my language, had to go and bloody breathe. Did I want to breathe and connect to myself at this time? Absolutely not. And I was like, oh my God, how do I escape this building? And in the breathes, it just became stronger and stronger. It wasn't like my granny. It was almost like a part of her spirit was with me in the breathes, telling me, I'm done, Carla. It's time for me to go. And I was like, no, please don't go. And it may sound crazy to you, for anyone who hasn't had those experiences in breath work or body work or any of those things. But it was a really difficult time, as you can imagine, to breathe and to feel your feelings. But it was really helpful because I was connecting more and more into the truth, and it was preparing me for going home. As you can imagine, I bawled my eyes out every session. Every breath worker is caught a crying her eyes out again. And I remember one part that really annoyed me. Please contact me if you haven't had this experience. Like, is there one of you who are listening who hasn't had the experience of being lied to as a child? And truth is important. And when you've been lied to before, truth, it's so important, isn't it? That people tell you the truth. And it can really trigger you when you've been lied to as a child, then to be lied to as an adult. And the research shows that we know when people are lying, our bodies know, the body contracts, whether we choose to register the lies in our cognitive mind. But your system is always reacting to lies, and that's the importance of embodiment work, because you will know when someone's lying and you begin to trust yourself more and more. So this guy, and I know he didn't mean well, right? But can you imagine? My granny is the love of my life. My biggest fear was coming true. And he said to me, this bloody hippie at this breathwork camp. And I know some of you think I'm a hippie, but there's layers to this spectrum. And he's like, it's going to be fine, Carla, she's going to be fine. There's no need to get so upset. Just totally minimizing my experience and my pain and what I knew. And I wanted to punch him right in the face. I want to punch him right now. Don't fucking tell me that someone's going to be okay when you know nothing about it. When I knew that she wasn't going to be okay. And this, I'm going to call him a gimp, right? This gimp is telling me something, and I know he means well, but I just don't think that's helpful. You could say, don't get worked up, just try and settle yourself to get home, blah, blah, blah. But do not make me false promises. And I think it angers me because it was everything that I wanted to believe that I knew wasn't going to happen in my body, if that makes sense. So I created like anger because there was a need in me that needed to be held in my experience, not to be told lies. I'm not going to share personal details around my granny's death because it is so personal and such a sacred experience. But what I can share is that I came home and I went straight to her house and I walked up the stairs, and then it became even stronger than knowing that this was the end. No one was talking about it like that, because everybody's processing their own grief and everybody's not wanting it to be real, right? She was in my bedroom in which I grew up in because it was closest to the bathroom. So she was in my childhood bedroom. And when I came into the room, there was a smell. And I never had it with my granda or my daddy. And I've never had this experience before. I don't know if it was because me and my granny had such a bond and the electric shocks, which I spoke about in another episode. There was such a connection between us. It was almost like I could smell death. And I know that sounds crazy. I'll never forget it. And her body was, she couldn't feed herself. She couldn't move her legs or her limbs. She was still her in her mind, but, you could tell that things were bad. And she just said, "Oh, daughter, I'm so glad that you're here." And we were very privileged and grateful to keep my granny at home through this time, because there's some horrific stories and some big traumas, huge, awful experiences that happened through that time, things that should never have happened through COVID. And we were very grateful that we got to keep her at home. And then the vigil began. And at the same time, my daddy was home, which I didn't know at the time, but would be his last trip to Ireland. And I sort of had that on my mind, that this could possibly be his last trip to Ireland. And I didn't wear a mask around my granny. I didn't want to frighten her more than what she was. And so I was doing tests every day, staying away from the public, having minimal contact with my daddy, because obviously I couldn't give him COVID. But I think, what was it? It was only like, I can't remember now. I can't remember about the test and her and when the virus wasn't contagious anymore. I can't really remember it all now. This went on for a month, so it would have only contagious for a period of time, and I can't really remember how we managed it. But yeah, there was a lot of testing daily, and obviously I stopped working and stuff from the get-go. Yeah, the vigil began at her bed, and I wasn't really able to spend time with my dad, and that was a difficult choice. And I suppose in those last weeks, if you get the gift, because not everybody gets this gift, that space of being with someone before they die, and people who die suddenly, I think maybe that's just who they are. They don't like goodbyes. I mean, I always love an Irish accent, so maybe I'll die like that. I'll be a fast accent out of this world, like, who knows? But I do know that it is a sacred time and a privilege to get to be with someone you love in the way that I got to be with my granny, when, there wasn't that much suffering. And I'm very grateful for that experience. We had nurses and morphine patches and things like that to manage her any discomfort. And she was very peaceful in these coming weeks, and it was a beautiful death. And I suppose what comes to mind, what I can share with you, is total presence. You're totally there in the room. You're not on the phone. You're totally breathing with her, totally connecting with her, attuning to her. And that's why that practice is so important in life. To not feel the pull of, I have to work and I have to do this and I have to go to the gym. To really allow the world to stop, because your world is stopping. And there's an Irish tradition that when someone passes, you stop all the clocks because your world has stopped. And so my granny died at 4:45 on Monday, the 25th of October, 2021, just before the sunset. And I think that's really beautiful, isn't it? When people die at those powerful times of transition in sunrise and sunset. And we stopped all the clocks in the house. And I think that's why it's important to practice the non-doing, practice not making your life so busy. Because especially if it's an addiction, you feel like, you might lose your mind by doing less. It's going to be difficult for you in those moments. It is difficult for everybody, don't get me wrong. But, if you do have addiction in your life in terms of exercise and doing and work, it's not just, it doesn't just go away just because these incredibly heartbreaking things happen. It can just cause a lot of suffering. So it's just something to be mindful of. And it was definitely something I was mindful of when I began to heal my addictions, because I realized if I felt pregnant, I was really going to struggle mentally. I wouldn't have been able just to give up exercise for a new life, for if I had kids or whatever. I hope that makes sense. I think telling this story is difficult for me. And I do remember definitely my mind being overactive on the day she died. That morning I went to walk up the mountain to settle myself. I had quite a lot of energy, and I went into the house and we knew it was the end, the raspy breathing. Yeah, and you just to share for anyone who hasn't had this experience, the hearing is the last sense to go when someone's passing away. So there was just a lot of holding her hand and whispering in her ear and saying prayers that mattered to her. And the house was filled with her children and her grandchildren. And, her children and a few grandchildren were in the room with her when she passed. And my granda, to watch someone lose someone they spent 60 years with, marks you in a way that I really don't have any words for. So weird. I just got a family call there. Weird. My granny and granda's face just came up on the screen. That is fucking freaky. Weird. Oh. And it's the 1st of November also, as All Saints Day. And my granny was a saint and she got buried today. Her funeral. Oh, she didn't get buried, by the way. She got cremated on the 1st of November. That really freaked me out, reasons. On the 1st of December was her funeral, and I was like, that's very fitting for her. But what was I going to tell you, sir? Oh, what came to my mind is my granny would have never spent a night alone. So if you think about the role of women, right? And I'm mindful of the time here. My granny lived with her mummy and her daddy until she was, married off to my granda. So she would never have lived alone. It wouldn't have been a thing. Never spent a night alone in her days. And then she lived with my granda the rest of her days. So it's mad. And it's very fitting, and she never wanted to be alone. So I think that was definitely her way to have a packed house on the day that she passed. And that's another thing that I'll share with you, is a final thing. I remember the funeral in the wake, it being very daisy, Is this real? Is this happening? And it's such a special time of remembering the person who's passed. And this is the only experience I have with my granny. I had different experiences with my granda and my daddy. But I remember the day after the funeral, I swear on my life, it was as if someone had a bat and beat me badly, all on the back. So your lungs lie on your back body. And it was so painful to touch. I'll never forget it. I couldn't get over the pain. It was so physical, very, very physical pain and grief the day after the funeral. And I remember the day of the funeral, and I have a photograph of this, a big, beautiful rainbow. And one of the last nights I spent with her, so my granny died on the Monday and I spent the Friday night with her. I slept on the floor beside her. And there was the most beautiful sunrise. My granny's house looks over Lenadine Estate, and I grew up, maybe that's why I am a wee sunrise head, like not no more. I haven't seen that hour in a long time. But maybe that's why I love that time of the morning, because I grew up in a house where the sun rose into it. And yeah, we had a gorgeous sunrise, and I have photographs of that morning. I think nice things to do on people's anniversaries is to print photos, write down the stories. And for people who are, always write down the stories and paper. Like my granny wouldn't have let me record her, so I have no videos of my granny. So it's definitely, you need to record things in notes and keep them in safe places. I think my granda loved the attention, so I could record him. If you can record them, record them. So I have lots of precious videos of my granda. And I know it's really hard for a lot of people who, these devices weren't about back then. Keep their handwriting if you can. For me, a way to honour my granny is to send friends cards and postcards. So I posted 2 cards on my granny's anniversary. Yeah, buy roses. My granny's favourite flower, and a flower that means a lot to her is roses. So I give them out at the breathwork, and just all these wee ways that you can honour the person that you love. And I'm going to finish with this. My voice. See, isn't it mad how different my voice is this week? I can't find my voice. I hope I've done my granny justice today, because the first one I don't think I did. That's why I had to do it again. I actually wear my granny's cardigan as well. So this is from the podcast Late to the Party with Grace Campbell. If you don't follow her, you really should. I love her to bits. And she had this lady on, Angela Scallon, who was on Strictly Come Dancing, was on Late to the Party with Grace Campbell. If you don't follow her, you really should. And they were talking about Joanna Lumley. Joanna Lumley played the character Patsy in Absolutely Fabulous. If you're too young to know what that show is, you need to make your life right and go and watch it immediately. One of the best things that was ever written. And Joanna Lumley played the character Patsy, who smokes all the fags and is always partying, absolute gay of a character. Oh, one of the best characters ever written. And so Angela talks about meeting Joanna Lumley, and Joanna Lumley's 78, okay? And I think she's still working. And she talks about Joanna Lumley looking around the room in awe And I think Angela was in awe, like, because Joanna's been working her whole life, and to still have this wonder and awe, and as if she was seeing everything for the first time, as if she was seeing the theatre for the first time, in how she approached her room and work and all those things. And Angela was like, how do you do that? Like, after all these years, it's as if it's your first job, that your excitement and your presence, it's amazing. And Joanna replied, well, it's just like life is a wonderful party with all my favorite people in it. And you never know when the car's going to arrive to ask you to leave the party, and you don't want to go because you're having such a great time with all the people you love. And I thought that was really powerful, and I wanted to finish that episode there, because it's not morbid to keep death close. It's very wise, and to be as present as you can, and to make the most of things, and to have that wonder and awe, and to look after yourself, because as Joanna rightly says, none of us know when the car's going to arrive for us, and whether we'll get a warning if it's going to be here in an hour, or it's an Irish goodbye. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode offered you something, a wee story, a very important story to my heart. It is November. Crazy, crazy, crazy. I'm actually home next week. I'm home next week, so I'm going to be in Belfast. I'm doing a swim. I'm so fucking scared. So if anybody wants to come be scared with me, I'm doing a swim that morning. I think it's like sunrise. It's like sunrise, like 8 o'clock at Helens Bay. If you want to come, come. And I also have a half-day retreat that day, which I'm so looking forward to. I think it's sold out. And I have a breathwork in Studio 52 on Sunday. So yeah, really special weekend in Belfast. I haven't been home since August. So I hopefully see some of you about. Yeah, send in loads of love. And please, as always, message me, share your stories, send you big hugs and kisses. And as always, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, maybe send to a friend, and your help and your support means the world. Sending loads of love. Bye bye.